All right, all right, all right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome back to the Real Precious Network. We're back here on the Adoptee Foster, and we have a great show planned for tonight. So I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm excited. Before we get into the specifics, definitely hit the like button, that thumbs up button outside of the live chat. Share this video with someone. We have a special treat for you guys tonight. And so this is going to be, like I said before the show even started, I'm going to be a student. I'm going to be asking questions, but I'm also going to be a student tonight because I believe that we, learn from each other, especially those in our community who are a part of the community and those who have gone through similar experiences than that we have. So definitely share this live and subscribe to the channel. Once you share it, the algorithm does its thing and it brings people our way. But when you subscribe, you're actually tapping in and when we go live. And so when you subscribe, you'll get that notification. If you hit the notification bell, you will be notified when anything happens. When I post on my wall, when I go live, anything. When I post a new video, let's just say we're not going live and we're premiering a video, you will be notified about that as well. So definitely subscribe so you know when we're going live. Because next week we have a good show too. We're gonna have a whole panel up here next week. So we got some good things in the works for you. But how are you doing this evening, Mr. Leon? 3 a.m.
I'm doing good. Fresh off a vacation. Attended my cousin's wedding. It was beautiful weather. I think it only rained once when I was there. I just got back last night, so I'm ready to go.
All right, all right. You need a vacation from the vacation.
Oh, for
I mean,
sure, for sure.
vacation from all the unpacking, the laundry,
Hmm.
getting back into the swing of work. It's like, back to life, back to reality. I hear you. It was a good day for me today. I really can't complain at all whatsoever. Good day at work. And so honestly, I was really looking forward to this live. So I'm like, all right, work's over. I cooked dinner last night. There were leftovers for tonight. Let's get this show on the road. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. I see some people in the chat. Tammy, hello to you as well. I see Miss Teresa in the chat. Good evening. Good evening to you. Thanks so much for being here. Christopher Sterling, good evening, all. I hope everyone is having a beautiful Tuesday. I am hoping the same. Um, Tonight we have a guest, and they say, create it and they'll come, make it and they'll come, build it and they will come. And I got a message, and someone who's wanting to be on the platform, someone who is part of the community. And not just someone, this individual is a trauma informed adoptee coach, someone who, studies the trauma, someone who coaches others through it. And so I was so honored to actually get that message and to be able to have her on our show tonight, because I think that again we can all learn from each other, but someone who is actually in the world of coaching, in the world of trauma. We all know that adoption is trauma to those who get adopted, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. We'll get into that too. However, there is some trauma there when you are taken away, when you are put in a family of someone who doesn't look like you, or people who don't look like you. They do not share your biological makeup. That is a bit traumatic when you try to find out who you are and you're trying to explore your identity, and answers and information is withheld from you. It can be a hard journey in life. And so I'm so glad that we have our guest this evening, Julie Bromley. Again, she is a trauma informed adoption coach, and I'm so honored to have her this evening. So, guys, without further ado, put your hands together as we welcome Julie.
Hi, everybody. So happy to be here.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much. We're so glad that you're here. Thank you again for offering just your time to be on our platform to inform and teach and just share in the experiences that adoptees go through. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Of
Um,
course.
Before I get into my questions, right? We as adoptees, we always it's almost like a how did you get here? You know, what's your origin story? And so you're an adoptee, and so of course with whatever you're comfortable with sharing, and I would guess that because you are very open with your platform and your coaching and your website, which I did link in the description, so definitely head there to check out Julie and get connected with her. But how did you get here? How did you become an adoptee? What is your origin story of adoption?
Yeah, I'd be happy to tell it. So I really didn't understand how adoption had impacted me until around 2010, to be honest. I was born in 1973. My birth mother attempted to abort me twice between weeks 12 and 16, which definitely, I believe, had an impact on my neurological development from
Wow.
everything that we know about science and the mother and how her stress can be transferred to the baby. So I entered into the world and was immediately in the 70s. You were taken directly. I think you guys know the stories. It's we've heard this. The blank slate babies taken and given to adoptive families. Well, I was in foster care for about 7 weeks, and my birth mother. The reason why I was in for that long, which isn't honestly that long, was because my birth mother disappeared. She gave birth to me and then disappeared and didn't sign any papers, nothing. So they were like, what do we do with her? We can't do anything until she does that. And at 4 weeks, she came and signed the papers. And then 3 weeks later, my foster family said they could no longer accommodate me and gave me back to the state, and immediately called my adoptive parents and said, we have a baby. Can you be here and see her? They held me for 45 minutes and then took me home with no diapers. I mean, literally, that's just how quickly it happened. So you can imagine when they brought me home, my mom that raised me said that I slept for 24 straight hours, that she could not wake me up. And
Wow.
so that tells you something. I'm sure. I don't know what happened in those first 7 weeks. I have no record. They won't give me any records. I've tried to access them, but that is a part of my life that I find is unfinished business for me. And so lived a great adopted life, to be honest. I had a wonderful family. My dad sadly died when I was 15,
Mm.
had a massive heart attack. And so I lost him at a very, very tender age. And, I think all of us as adopted people struggle with loss in many ways. But
Mhm.
when you lose somebody at that age, it can be really difficult. And so I think I really had to fight for emotion. I was afraid to have emotion for a long,
Mhm.
long time. And so I think what led me to do what I am doing now currently was I just had such a desire to work with addictive behaviors. Actually, my dad was an alcoholic and really struggled with that, and I was married to somebody who struggled with addictive behaviors, and I myself was just a really good codependent, which I think a lot of adopted people are, because we're people pleasers, and so it's pretty easy for us to seek others approval to feel okay with who we are. And so I realized in order for me to be able to help those around me, I needed to help myself first. And so that's where I started to really do the work on myself back in 2010. And I got my master's degree. I was working on my own recovery during that time. And I was at a group a class where they were training me on how to do groups. And my professor pulled me aside because she found out I was adopted. And she said, point blank, you have skeletons in your closet regarding adoption. And if you don't deal with them, you will harm the people that you help.
Mm.
Totally shocked me. I felt like somebody had smacked me across the face. At the time, didn't realize how adoption had impacted me. And that was the beginning of me understanding how it impacted me. And so that's where it all began. And I really pursued helping addictive behaviors during that time, but also explored my own stuff. And that's when I found out that she had attempted to abort me twice and had to really work through that fragmentation, the pieces of me that I felt like just shattered when I found that out. And so anyway, that's kind of how I got to where I am. And I have now, I can get into how I built what I've built, but that's why I'm here, is because I realized I need to deal with my own stuff first.
Wow. That is 7 weeks. 7 weeks. And within those weeks, a lot transpired. A lot
Mm-hmm.
transpired. But you're here now, and we're glad that you're here now. And I'm sure that
Mm-hmm.
everyone who has encountered you is glad that you're here. I saw a lot of your, I guess you can call them testimonials or comments about those you have coached. And I loved going through
Mm-hmm.
them because it's, you don't really know the impact that you have on other people until they say it, until they express it. And being able to do the work yourself
Mm-hmm.
turn helps those who need to do the work themselves. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for leaning into your healing and knowing that something had to change. I went through that as well in my 20s, knowing something that had to change, knowing that there was something wrong and there was something I had to do about it, but I wasn't quite sure. And, leaning into that helped me more than I could ever imagine, while going through it. I couldn't see my way out. And so getting that help definitely did help. So
Mm-hmm.
what does it mean to be a trauma informed adoptee coach, and why is it different from traditional coaching?
Yeah, well, it's not, I wouldn't say it's different from traditional coaching, besides the fact that when you are trauma informed, you use trauma informed language, invitational language. It's not, you need to da 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 da. It's, I'd like to invite you to try whatever that is. Or can I suggest something to you that might be helpful? You ask for permission before you tell somebody something. That's really kind of what trauma informed means. And when I work with somebody, I don't ever assume that they are a broken human. I assume that I'm dealing with a whole individual that just doesn't realize that they are whole yet. And a lot of adoptees will come with this whole idea that I must be broken, something must be wrong with me. And trauma informed is you are working with an already whole and inherently worthy human. And I just try to help them find that. I try to
Right.
help them find that within themselves. And I do that through that invitational language and the things that I do, the different practices that I do that are body based.
Leading them back to themselves. That was one
Mm-hmm.
thing that caught my attention, when I was going over one post that you had, and I was that like it stood out to me so profoundly because it's like we're here, but sometimes we can be
Mm-hmm.
so many other different places. Our minds can be so many different other places, and it's scattered. um and yet we don't know how to express that. We don't know who to express it. 3am, would you agree? Because leading you back to yourself, it's like, well, how is somebody else going to lead me back to myself? They don't know who I am, and they don't, but we do need that. We actually do need that, because we feel as though we're here to, like you said, please others and to fulfill
Mm-hmm.
other purposes, and
Mm-hmm.
we forget about ourselves because we don't want to be given up again because we're being so selfish. So would you find that to be true as well? You needed to be led back to yourself, 3am.
Yeah, I mean, even if you don't have someone that can use the right language, there are always people who give you insight or like when you have positive people that reinforce who you are, that's how you become a better person. Like I've been talking about that for a long time. Is when you have negative people around you, you can't progress in life as a person. Like if somebody's always telling you, "Oh, you're never going to be this or you're never going to be that," instead of saying, my parents, they were like, "Well, you can do anything you want. Whatever you want to do, you can do it." Like don't a title means nothing. It's really about your attitude.
Hmm.
Because and they also say respect people, the same way you will respect me. No one is above a title. It's all about how people perceive you, and it's how you treat people in life. Just like when um, you see an old lady that needs help outside. Don't just walk past her. Help her. It's all about your character.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I would agree. I would definitely agree. Now, we always hear, and we say it here, I just said it a few minutes ago, how adoption, um, whether you recognize it or not, is trauma. So for you and your coaching studies, experience, personal experience, is adoption itself a trauma, even when an adoptee is raised in a loving family?
Yes, I believe it is. And I get pushback on this all the time from especially those from my mother's era, because they truly were told, you are getting a blank slate baby. My mom was told that phrase she was told. And so they believed that. And I think my mom over she's really become an advocate for what I do because she now sees the problem with it is that it's silent. It's something that is cellular. It's something that doesn't have language. And so, because these things happen to us before we actually understand what's happening and don't have a choice, then it takes us a while. Hence, the reason why a lot of us adult adoptees come out of the woodwork when we're in our late 30s, 40s, 50s, because we're realizing something's not right. Like there are patterns in my life, and I'm realizing that I'm outsourcing my power to other people. I'm not getting it from within. I'm needing everyone else to tell me that I'm okay. And I think one of the big things I've realized is that trauma impacts every aspect of our life. And until we actually realize that it is that, we will continue to deal with that in our lives. It will be an active participant until we're able to actually love up on that and give it the attention that it really needs. Because it's the root, in my opinion.
Right. So what you're saying is it pretty much lies dormant. It
I
lies
think so.
until, and what would you say, like you said, we come out in our 30s, 40s, 50s, some people, younger than that. But what do
Yeah,
you
yeah.
think triggers the, I don't want to call it the silent beast, but once it wakes up, once it wakes up, there is so much. I mean, from meeting your biological family, from feeling those feelings and really diving into them and sorting them out in your life. But what do you think triggers it? Because for some people it's like, oh, I didn't realize that it bothered me or it had an effect on my life until I had kids, or
Mm-hmm.
I went to a family function and someone asked a question, and then, oh my goodness, it triggered. So do you think that there is something that triggers the beast to be awoken, or is it different for everyone?
I honestly think it is different for everyone. I mean, Judy just posted that the loss of her last adoptive parent is
Mm,
what caused her, and she was in her 60s. I
wow.
literally had a conversation with a couple this morning of an adopted child who is 17 years old, who is already experiencing the ramifications of the loss of her adoptive family. And the fact that they were so aware and wanted help for their daughter, I was like, you don't understand how amazing that is, because it's not very common. People don't see the need. And so the fact that you're seeing that is huge. So look at that, 60, 17. It could be at any time in your life. For me, it was when I got smacked across the face in 2010 by my professor. That's what pulled me out. I think it could be something like that. It could be something gradual. And the adoptee consciousness model, it's not about, if you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Coming out of the fog, the adoptee consciousness
Yes,
model. Have you heard of that?
yeah, we did. We actually did 2 episodes, part 1 and part 2 of the
I
adoptee
was
fall.
just about to say we really covered that, and
Yes.
I
Okay,
kind of
good.
and I kind of call it. I didn't know about the fog until we actually did the episode, but I basically call it the Twilight Zone.
Yes, it feels like that. It seriously feels like honestly, like part of me felt like my head was floating and my body was grounded, but I wasn't connected to that because I had no language for what was happening in
Hmm.
my body. And
Right.
so once I started learning that language, like what does it mean when my body, the bottom, like my legs shake? What does that mean? Like there's got to be something attached to that. Well, it meant I didn't feel safe. Like there's different things that I had to learn over time that helped me understand that that was my trauma talking. And it was how I reacted to things. If I noticed that I either underreacted or overreacted something that didn't deserve it, that's when I began to recognize, oh my gosh, I'm reacting. This isn't reality. And so there's this thing that I teach a lot of my clients called replay versus reality, or truth versus trauma. And basically, what that is our bodies, our nervous system. You guys probably know this and have heard this from multiple people, but our nervous system is so familiar with being in fight, flight, fawn, freeze, flop, because we entered the world, in my opinion, with complex PTSD. So we're cycling through all of these things because we're separate from the only thing that we know, and we have to figure out how to survive. If we would have had boundaries, think about it.
Hmm.
If I would have had boundaries as a infant, I probably would not have survived. If I would have said, nope, sorry, I don't want to be held by you, I want to go back, but I didn't have language to do that. So in order for me to survive, I had to be like, okay, sure, take me, but I cried my eyes out, I guarantee you. And at
Yeah.
the time, what I understand is during that time they were giving us phenobarbital, and I guarantee you that's probably what happened to me. And that's the reason probably why I slept for so long, is because my parents weren't going to drug me, you know? And anyway, lots of things I could say about that. And I don't even remember what the question was because I just lost
So I can tell you, actually, Precious actually recommended this book for me. It's called Primal Wound,
Yep.
and I didn't even know what my body was going through until I started reading all of these
Mm-hmm.
things. Obviously, when I'm 3, 4 years old, I don't know what this is, right? Like, I'm just trying to,
Right.
get out of the twilight zone, but I'm stuck there for years. But um, it really makes sense now. And, I don't know if you actually seen the interview. My sister, my biological sister, was on here with me. And
I didn't see that.
we, she brought up a lot of things that actually make sense to me now. Like how, for example, I was a premature baby, and my mother basically did feed me when I was a kid and wouldn't change my diaper. Um, so now I know why I have a lot of stomach problems because of nutrition. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and the doctors could never figure it out for years until like she said something on that show, and I was like, well, that makes perfect sense. You know,
Yeah. It
um,
does. And this is one of the things, honestly, that I deal with my clients is I teach them the vagus nerve, the vagus nerve that runs from the base of our skull to the base of our spine. Polyvagal theory talks about a lot of this, actually. And one of the things that I talk about is the fact that a lot of the adopted people that I work with have stomach problems. And the reason why they do is because that's where the identity is held in the body. Identity lives in your gut. And so most adopted people struggle with IBS or irritable bowel or Crohn's or things like that. And I
Yeah,
have
I have,
found, yeah, and it's not an easy thing to deal with, but a lot of times what I'll tell them is the minute you deal with the core trauma, more than likely that will go away.
go away.
And I've noticed that with a lot of my clients. It's so fascinating to me. It's
Mm,
once they learn the language of the body, once they know what their body is saying and they know how to speak it. It's what the coach Chelsea put in Their Body Keeps the Score that you highlighted. That
Mhm.
book was the beginning of me really understanding that I had been missing a piece in my own recovery, in my own healing, and it was the body piece.
is that Gabor Mate as well? Is that did he
It's Bessel van der Kolk.
Bessel van der okay. I know
Yeah.
that
Yep.
Gabor, he speaks about that a lot, how the body
He
keeps
does.
score.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if
Mhm.
he was the author of that. Okay. I'm another book. I gotta add to the
Mhm. Add it to the collection. And Primal Wound, I'm telling you, 3 a.m. was the book that pulled me out of my stupor. When I read that book, I realized this is the language I've been missing my entire life. And a lot
Yeah.
of adopted people struggle with that book because it's written by an adoptive
collection.
parent,
Yep.
not by an adoptee. And I think I really respected the book because of the fact that she was able to recognize that this
Mhm.
was happening in her daughter and write about it. I just thought it was amazing to me.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in my opinion, I think it didn't matter who really it came from. It's just acknowledging
Mm-hmm.
those symptoms or those factors going on, and really having the, wherewithal to actually be able to write it down, be able to remember those particular stages, what happened and what she did, or how did she help
Mm-hmm.
help the child come out of, whatever they were experiencing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. For me, it was 20 things adoptive kids wish their adoptive parents knew.
Yep.
Terry Eldridge. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
goodness. That book, when I read that book, I was blown away. I was blown away
Mm-hmm.
because we always talk about having these feelings and emotions and not having the language, and how do we break into having these conversations with our adoptive parents if it wasn't a
Right.
conversation that was initially welcomed in the first place. And when I read that book, I was like, wow, these are all the things that have been going through my mind, that I've been thinking about, that I have experienced. And so that's another book that I would encourage anyone who is adopted, those who are adopting, definitely get that book, 20 Things I Wish My Adoptive
Mm-hmm.
Parents Knew, because it definitely will bring up a lot of relative questions, scenarios, and solutions on how to handle, these matters. All right,
Mm-hmm.
so many adoptees struggle with belonging. Why is this such a common experience, and what can help an adoptee with that struggle?
Well, honestly, what's interesting is that's what we seek. We seek that feeling of belonging.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I think we do instead is try to fit in. There's a difference. Fitting in is taking ourselves and putting a square peg in a round hole. That's fitting in. And we try to
Mhm.
do that all of our lives in the hopes that we will belong. Belonging is not something that comes from outside of us. Truly, I believe this with every fiber of my being. I believe it comes from within us. But because we were severed from that first understanding of love, it's difficult for us to believe that love can be consistent. And so to us, belonging feels confusing, hence the reason we're seeking for it so much. One of the things I really believe is that belonging is something that we cultivate. It is not something that just happens overnight, it's a practice. And so that's really the foundation of everything that I do is based upon that, is finding belonging within yourself. And there's 5 conditions that I believe need to exist for adopted people to be able to cultivate belonging. The first one is curiosity. A lot of times we're judgmental, we're stuck in shame, but curiosity really totally gets rid of that. It's one of the things that has helped me so much in my life is to realize, okay, wait, old Julie would have immediately judged. What if I was actually curious here and asked more questions? What is my body doing? And so I ask those questions. Two is clarity. And clarity isn't certainty. Clarity is just increasing awareness. And that is something that we do with the body, but it takes a little bit of practice, and it takes what I call titration, because a lot of adoptees don't have a lot of body awareness. We just don't. We've been stuck in our head, disconnected from our bodies because we don't have the language. So it's learning the felt sensations of the body, and clarity is just being aware of that. The third one is capacity. You'll notice they're all C's because I'm a weirdo with alliteration. But anyway, it helps me to remember things. But capacity, the reason why this one is so unbelievably important, and actually I'm releasing an episode of my podcast on this week, but it's how we begin to increase our ability to hold emotion. But it takes us being able to build that. And it takes work. It takes just being with those emotions. There's two different things that we use in capacity. One is called titration, which I've already brought up. The other one is pendulation. I don't know if you've heard either of those words, but it's just so important for us to understand when we're activated. What if there's a part in our body that isn't activated? So let's say we get triggered and our heart starts beating really, really fast. What I would say to a person to pendulate in that situation to increase their capacity is place your hand over your heart and then find a place in your body that isn't activated. More than likely your ear or your toe. I'm serious. I'm dead serious. And what you do is you go back and forth between the two. And over time, it reduces the activation and it increases your capacity. So that's number 3. Number 4 is connection. We have to start with ourselves, though. One of the things that we do as adopted people, I said this at the very beginning, is we seek that outside of ourselves, externally, thinking that that will fulfill us. It never does until we are able to find that connection with ourselves. But you've got to be curious. You got to have some clarity. You got to build some capacity in order to be able to connect with yourself. And then the last one, people hate this one, just saying out loud, is consistency. When I say that word, most people groan. They're like, what does that mean? I'm like, okay, well, if you're going to build your body's capacity to hold something, our nervous system is more familiar with frickin' hell because it's lived there for so long than it is with familiar heaven. You guys know this. You've probably heard this many times. The only way to build that capacity is to connect with ourselves, be with ourselves in those emotions, and consistently do simple things like hand over heart when your heart is beating fast, like whatever it self-hugs when you're feeling deserted by somebody, abandoned by somebody. I know that sounds basic, but that's really the work. The work is showing up for yourself consistently when you're not activated. And what I mean by that is every night when I lay down and go to sleep, I'm fine. I'm not activated usually, but I self-hug at night and I will rock myself to sleep. It sounds kind of ridiculous, but I love it. Because over time, what that has done for me is it has allowed me to feel more and more regulated because I'm now regulating with me. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, it does. It makes sense to me, and it's crazy because I was just having this conversation with my sister. I'm the oldest of 7, and all of our stories are different and crazy. And, you know, we could probably have a whole series on Netflix, honestly, to tell you the truth. But one of the things that she said to me, I remember her saying, you know, I had to, you know, hug myself. I hug myself. And I never knock anyone's the way that they have to regulate themselves, because for everyone it'll be different. Like me, I like to do a lot of different breathing. You know, sometimes when I can't sleep at night, it's like, all right, let's do the breathing. And for some people it's hugging themselves. Like you said, for some people it is rocking themselves. Sometimes I'll rock, you know, just to kind of calm my nerves a little bit. I think I used to do that in basketball too. I think it could just be normal for me though. But but I never knock anyone's ways that they self-regulate, especially those who are adopted or in foster care, because we have to find a refuge or safety, like you said, within ourselves first
Mhm.
before we can try to find that within someone else. Because if we can't find it within ourselves first, no matter who we attach ourselves to or try to attach ourselves to, we'll always be unregulated, and there will always be um, issues for concern, because you won't be able to kind of calm yourself down, and then no one will be able to do that for you.
Mhm.
You don't know how to do it for yourself. So it
Yeah.
definitely makes sense to me for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to like I said, one of the books that I love is 20 Things That I Wish My Adoptive Parents Knew. But what is one thing you wish adoptive parents understood about the adoptee experience? Because your parents were um, received you when you were very young. You know, I was nine
Mhm.
years old when I was adopted.
Mm.
3 a.m. was
3 years old.
3 years old. I don't
Mhm.
know why I always want to say 3 weeks. Why I always want to I always want to say three
Maybe you know
weeks.
some I don't.
No. But what is one thing that you wish they knew about the experience? Because again, I was 9, 3 years old. You were weeks old, when you
Mhm.
got adopted. So our experience going into an adopted home for everyone is all over the place a lot of the time. So what's one thing
Yeah.
you wish they understood about our experience?
Is that they're dealing with the ticking time bomb. I know that sounds
No,
horrible. I don't like saying that, but
thank you.
but I just feel like I don't you truly are. You don't know when it's going to go off. And
You
so
ain't lying,
3
girl. You ain't lying.
I'm not cuz listen, 7 weeks, 3 years, 9 years. We still have a lot of the same freaking symptoms. I mean, let's be honest, okay? And I think it's so important for us to realize, and I think it is, that adoption is trauma. That is something that they need to understand. You don't receive a blank slate. What you're receiving is somebody else's child. Sorry. That's the honest to God truth. You said we speak things that a lot of
Out
people won't
loud. Say it
say.
out
I'm
loud,
just
girl.
I'm just saying it. I'll say it out loud for the people in the back. But all I'm saying is we need to realize that what we're doing is taking somebody else's child. And so of course you're going to have a very maladjusted person without them even knowing that they are. And I'm not saying that to be to label. I'm saying that because I lived it, and I think you guys did too. So when I look back and I see my life and I see my relationships and I see how much somebody said once I was Judy said once I was 14 and I had to have a boyfriend to feel valued and to belong to somebody. That is, for me, that was the pattern. If people said I was okay, then I was okay. I had no internal compass. I didn't know how, like I said at the beginning, to come back home to myself. And
Mhm.
that is the goal, is to empower adoptees to realize that the power is within them. It is. We just have to help them find it. Tick, tick. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Wow, that was you were right on the money with that, because you don't know. Like I said, it's almost like a dormant sleeping monster,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you don't have the language, especially when you don't have the conversations. I always say have them early and often. When you don't, and then you finally do, I know the adoptive parents are like, "Whoa, what is happening?" And
Release the hounds.
right, the signs are there, but we're not picking up on the signs, and neither are the adoptive parents, because it's like, "Oh, they're just kids," or they're just going through this phase, or "Oh, they're just being a little distant," or they're just teenagers. And it's more than that with us,
Mm-hmm.
because we do have an added layer of reality that
Mm-hmm.
nobody really wants to acknowledge as reality. And when I say nobody, I mean adoptive parents. They go
Mm-hmm.
in, let's just say an adopted child is, diagnosed with ADHD from a doctor. I know personally, my parents were like, we're not even gonna put that on our child. We're gonna pray it away. We're gonna go to church. We're gonna do, X, Y, and Z. Nobody wants to deal with the reality of what is going on with this child, especially when you didn't do anything to cause it. It's almost like you don't want to wake up that ticking bomb because you don't even have the solutions because you didn't cause it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that
Mm-hmm.
was whew, ding 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 ding. Hit the nail on the head, okay? When an adoptee expresses grief, anger, or curiosity about biological family, how should adoptive parents respond to that?
Ask a lot of questions. Do not say any statements like they know what the heck they're talking about because they don't. I think, honestly, adoptive parents need to allow emotions to be real, to be with them when they're feeling that stuff. A lot of times, and I heard this from the parents today that I was talking to, they said, we've allowed her emotions and they've been big ones. And I said, most adoptive people have big emotions. And I think part of the problem for me growing up was that, and I love them, but this is how they were raised. You guys probably were similar. I don't know, it could be wrong. But I was told my feelings were ridiculous and was sent to my room.
Girl,
So
you don't know.
you know what I'm talking about.
No, I was told I was doing too much. I was too emotional, and
Mm-hmm.
in my mind, I'm thinking, this is wrapped. This is so sauced down in emotion. I mean, if a hot wing could get any wetter or hotter, I don't like. This is what this is. Like, I don't understand. Why is this the response I'm getting? Why, I, you know,
Oh,
and then it's like, what do you even do with that? Like, how do you even sit with that as an adoptee? I think Julie. Oh, there we are. You froze for
I
a
did.
second.
I'm back. I'm so sorry about that.
It's okay.
yeah. You know, I've talked about this a lot, and um, I had some of those experiences, but it was more subtle. They were like, "Well, we will." Um, my parents were like, "Well, we will talk about it when we think that you're ready to discuss it." It wasn't like they were like, "Well, you don't need to know." They were basically like, I think in their mind they were like, we don't believe that you're mature enough to
Mm-hmm.
handle these conversations right now. It's like, okay. I was like, okay. So I told the story. Um, I spent several days trying to formulate what I was going to ask my mom, right? Like, so,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I told Precious this. I said I had to check the temperature of my parents, of my mom. Like, is that the is she in a good mood? And will this be a conversation? Because I had no idea how the conversation was going to go. I didn't know
Right.
if she was going to actually be like, no, we're not never talking about this. Don't ever, So you have those thoughts, and then surprisingly, she was very open. She was very, honest with me. She was like, I don't know a lot about your parents, but whenever you are ready to look for them, we will spend the money or we will do whatever we need to do to help you get there, And so, um, obviously, that's just my experience. It's not the experience of everyone. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
explaining, how I went about it. Um, and then I think maybe when I was in my late 20s or 30s, that's when I started, searching for my parents. I actually met my birth father and mother. Like I said, my sister was on the panel
Mm-hmm.
a couple weeks ago. So, I said if I wanted to be on this, with Precious, I had to do the work myself, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing the work. So people, I'm not just talking. I'm doing the work. I'm out there trying to find my family, trying to do what I can. I did want to ask you a question. Um, why is it that when you are searching or when you reach out to your family members, a la Ancestry DNA, you can see they read the message, they don't actually respond, or you call somebody, you talk to somebody that's in the household, they say, okay, they will relay the message, but they never actually. Do you think they feel guilty? Do you think they feel like over all these years that they didn't try to communicate with you, or do you think the family is just not, you know, the family is so far apart on their decisions, that they can't even muster up the strength to actually get over that?
Well, I think it can be multiple things. I think it can be what you already said, but I think it can definitely be guilt. I think it can be maybe there's secrecy, nobody knew. And so, because nobody knew, they don't know what to do with that information. And they have to sit on
Hmm.
it for a little bit to figure out how they're going to break the news to the people around them that they've never told you existed. Stuff like that. I mean, I just think there's so many different pieces to the adoptee stories that blow my mind that I hear. I mean, mine is kind of funny actually. My birth mom drove or hitchhiked from Oceanside, California to Colorado on semi trucks at 16 years old
Wow.
and hooked up with my dad at a party, slept with him one night, and then he left the next day to go to work. He came back and found her in bed with his two roommates. So she slept with three
Wow.
dudes in 24 hours. And that's how I came to be. So, Mama Mia, welcome here. That was me. Um, but what's so interesting about that is she had no idea which one it was, obviously. And
Hmm.
so when it came to me finding her, she said, we can do DNA so we can figure out who it is. But at the time, I was already overwhelmed by the fact that I found her. I wasn't ready to find a dad. I'm just like, let me let this settle in first.
Hmm.
It wasn't until 2020, and she had died. My birth mother had died, that I decided I really want to know what my heritage is without even realizing that I would potentially find somebody. Didn't even, I don't know why, but it didn't dawn on me. And that's how I found my birth father, was through that and finding out that I was 52% Italian and he was 100% Italian, that I had all these siblings. I mean, it was amazing. But all that to say, he had no idea I existed.
My
None.
dad didn't either.
Right. And so what is he supposed to, he could have decided to do anything with that. He could have been like, nope, don't want anybody to know. But thankfully, that's not what he did. He said, she's a blessing. I really want to meet her. And I'm now living in his basement right now, which I think is
Oh my God.
quite interesting. So I know. I mean, I'm starting all over, y'all. I've been divorced for about 2.5 years. So your girl is working on starting all over, and that's okay. I'm fine with
That's
it. But
okay.
right. So it's
That
just
is
really interesting. So I say that only because I think it depends on the person. He could have said, I don't want to have anything to do with her, because he felt guilty and just didn't, and because he didn't tell his family because he didn't know, but he didn't do that. Now, I talked to somebody today who had a situation where her dad didn't want to, or her mom didn't want to have anything to do with her, nothing, but the dad did. So it's, you don't know that these people discover, they start exploring what it could be like to let whomever know, and they feel scared and choose not to. And so I think it just depends on the individual.
Yeah, because I'm actually going through this right now, so that's why I asked. I actually had a cousin on my mom's side basically tell my sister that she thought I had passed away when I was a kid.
Ugh.
And so that story is probably lingering, but, I don't, the one thing I don't let people do, I don't let it discourage me, because
Good.
that's just a part of who they are. It's not my story. It's just how they feel, um,
Mm-hmm.
based off of lies that have been told. And so I'm still searching, and I was just curious about what you may think about that.
Yeah. Well, I told you. That's what I think.
Now, for adoptees who want to begin their healing, if they feel stuck, disconnected, or unsure, where do they start? Where would you suggest that they start?
Well, I mean, obviously, what I do is this. So
Right.
I help adopted people get unstuck. And I know that's one of the reasons why I'm here is because you are so lovingly and willingly allowing me to share this platform. So thank you for that. I think one of the things that I really believe they need is to understand the body. If adoptees don't understand the body, they're really not going to be able to understand what happened to them because all of the felt sensations of the trauma are held there, not in
Mhm.
the head. They're
Right.
held in the body. And so, where I really help them start, I have a 7-day, really simple foundational mini course that I do live usually once a month. This month I won't be able to do that because of everything going on in my life, as you know, precious.
Right.
Um, but I love doing that. And actually, Judy, who's on here, has done it. But that's a good place to start. Another thing that I literally just launched today is a membership community that I call the Refuge, where people can be a part of and really learn what it's like to be in a safe space, to be in a place where you're held and space is open for you to communicate whatever you want to communicate. But they also have access to different workshops that I've done that other people can't have access to. So that's kind of cool. I'm really excited about that. And then,
Mhm.
of course, I have coaching programs that are deeply immersive. Like I have a year-long coaching program to help you move through the belonging blueprint that I've created. That comes from that umbrella that I talked to you about, the cultivating those 5 conditions. They
Right.
all fall underneath that and help you to actually cultivate those conditions. So,
Okay. So pretty much what you're saying is get in contact with you guys. Like I told you, I have listed Julie's website as well as the podcast in the description of this video. So definitely tap in, tap in, tap in. Now for adoptees who are considering a search
mm-hmm.
for reunion or for their family, what emotional preparation should they do beforehand? Because I was a lot older. Well, not a lot older. I was in my 20s when
Yeah.
um, someone told me to change my last name on Facebook to my biological last name. And I had never thought to do that, but I did. And luckily I did because the only person in my biological family that I have a picture of is the person who found me on Facebook. It's crazy. But what emotional, like what, how would you tell them to prepare, or what emotional preparation should they have before trying to search and be in reunification with their biological family?
Well, I mean, it really is an individual thing, but what I will say is the book that actually really helped me was Coming Home to Self by Nancy Verrier. I don't know if you've heard of that book, but it's like a Bible for adopted people. And there's a whole section on reunion that
Mhm.
helped me so much when I was moving into that. And then there is a person right now who's writing a book on reunion, Elizabeth Barber, who I highly recommend y'all getting into contact with. She's amazing. She is working with Leslie McKinnon. I don't know if anybody knows who that is, but Leslie McKinnon is a birth mother who has worked with CUB, Concerned United Birth Parents, for years, very
Okay.
well known in the constellation space. But the two of them are working together to do retreats as well. She's wonderful. But all of that to say, that book is what helped me. And when I talk about being emotionally ready with people, I have a free exercise that's actually free on my website right now called the processing emotions exercise, and it steps you through how to do that in real time when it is happening. So when you get triggered, you actually have a tool right there that you can immediately use. You can either voice memo yourself with the things, you can write it down really quick, but it's a very easily accessible tool that I would recommend to use in preparation for that.
Yes, Judy says, Julie's revelation is why I'm here to learn more. I had so many insights in such a short time. It was beyond valuable. I know what you mean, girl. I know what you, I got you. I got you. But yeah, like I said, your testimonials were amazing.
Mm,
I just was like, wow, she has had so much impact on those in the community that, the outpouring was just undeniably, apparent that you really
mm,
affect the community in the best way as possible. So I thank you on their behalf, because
mm.
I
Thank
want
you.
to get connected with all of those resources as well. Um,
Yeah, thank
Now,
you.
can adoption be both a beautiful experience and a source of lifelong grief at the same time? It kind of goes back to the, living in a great family and coming up with a great family. I had a great family growing up, wonderful parents, but there were some areas that, needed a little help and facilitation or still need help and facilitation.
Yeah.
But can adoption be both a beautiful experience and source of lifelong grief at the same time?
I do believe it can. And here's the issue with that: adoptees live in a state of what I call dichotomy, in a state of division, in a state of both and.
Mhm.
Sadly, that is how we have had to survive. When you enter into the world losing a culture, losing a family, losing the only thing you know, that's one division. And then you move into this new division, which Betty Jean Lifton calls it the false self.
Mhm.
And it's just the divided self is what I call it. You live over here, it's still there. It's the ghost kingdom is another phrase for it, trying to figure out what it's like. But
Yeah.
then we have to figure out how to survive in this false self. And it's really difficult. And so that both and it can be gosh, I get so much pushback when I say adoption can be beautiful. What I tell them is, let me finish my phrase. Because it can be both beautiful
Yep.
and awful at the same time.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing, and this is, I get the chills even talking about this. Adopted people are some of the most resilient people I have ever met. Hence the reason my podcast is called The Resilience Project, because I just feel like we have had to learn how to be strong with both, and
Yeah.
existing in both of those. That's a strong person that is
Yeah.
able to do that.
Yeah. Because it's
It's
very.
funny you say that because my adopted mom at a young age told me, "You're going to be the strongest one in this family." I didn't know what that meant at the time. I was probably 11 or 12. And I mean, you know, my parents or my brother are no longer here, and I'm the one left, in the family from my immediate family. And so I know what it means now, but I didn't know what it
Mm-hmm.
meant then. But that doesn't mean it's right.
Right,
Look,
exactly.
okay. Sometimes I tell God, I'm tired of being one of your strongest children. All right. Tired. Right?
Yeah, I feel that.
I need a break, boss.
I need a break. All right, boss.
Yeah,
But you're
seriously.
right. I talk about it all the time, the duality of adoption. And,
Mm-hmm.
you don't know what it is until you are in it because, like 3 a.m. always says, it is like the twilight zone. And then we come back down to some sort of reality when we're with our adoptive parents and adoptive family. And, but then when we're away from it, it's almost like we're back in this other reality or zone or the other half of the duality, that sphere. And
Mm-hmm.
being able to, because there are triggers, even with my family right now, there are some things going on and I'm just like, we deal with the what's going on with the reality of the biological family, but then there are things going on with the adopted family, and it's just like I wish I didn't have both sides. I wish I didn't have to learn or know how to exist in both realities. But when you get to a certain point and there is reunification and there is finding out, finding your family and your siblings and things of that nature, those things enter your life and you do have to find a way to be able to coexist in both
Mm-hmm.
realities, and it can definitely be difficult.
Yeah.
And for some people, it can be a lifelong grief because they never figure out how to do that. They never
Mm-hmm.
come to themselves. Some adoptees are not as resilient as others. The unaliving rate within our community is so high because of that.
Yeah.
They
Mm-hmm.
just don't ever get that chance to
Mm-hmm.
really see their full potential and where they can come out on the other side.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get to the last question of the night. If an adoptee is watching tonight and they feel unseen, misunderstood, or alone, what would you want them to know as a trauma informed adoptee coach? If they're feeling unseen, misunderstood, or alone, what would you want them to know?
That they are not alone, that there is somebody right here in front of them, other two people right here in front of them that have similar experiences. And all we need to do is share those experiences. One of the things that I would say, and this is difficult for adopted people to receive when they're really stuck, but
Yeah,
like I said at the beginning, I believe that every human, but specifically adopted people needs to hear this, that they are already inherently worthy. They don't need to prove freaking anything. And I think we believe that we have to. That's what we entered into the world believing. And I don't think we need to do that. I think what we need to believe is that we are already inherently worthy. And I want to help them feel like they can come back home to that. So,
yes, yes, yes. Now
Amen.
that, amen. I actually do have one more question, and this I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
you don't have to apologize.
I do want to ask this just because it is something that is happening present day. What would you say to the person who is self harming
Mm,
because of their adoption trauma?
oh my gosh. Well, I would encourage them to actually put words to their pain
Mhm.
versus harming themselves to feel the pain. And that's sometimes really difficult. One of the simplest things, tools that I use is acrostics. And I learned, do you know what that is? What an acrostic is?
Don't. What is that?
Okay. So I learned this from another trauma informed coach friend of mine, Liz, Dr. Liz DeBetta, and she and I do retreats together. But it's a tool, simple tool where you spell out a word like pain or harm and you write down what that means. It begins to give you language for what you're actually experiencing. And it's a simple way to do something versus having to journal everything out because a lot of people in those places struggle with even having the words. So that's a tool that I would highly recommend because it gets them out of this and actually onto what is happening to them if they can, and then it gives them the space to be able to experience that emotion. But I really think they need additional help. They can't do that by themselves. They can't deal with self-harm by themselves. That's something you need help with for sure.
Yeah. All right. I didn't mean to end it there on that note. However, I did want to ask you that question because, like I said, our community does have a high percentage of those who
Mm-hmm.
self harm or
Yeah.
self delete, and they need to know that they are not alone. They do need to
Mm-hmm.
be able to put words to that pain and not harm
Yeah.
themselves and be honest with it as well. You'll have some adoptees that'll say, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm okay. That
Yeah.
was yesterday, or that was like last week, and I'm trying to get over it. I'm trying to get past it." However,
Mm-hmm.
to those around them, it's a very serious matter, and we don't want it to go unseen or untouched because today is Tuesday and you did it last Wednesday. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
being
I
able
do.
that person some help. So I appreciate you speaking to that. I'm not sure if anyone in the chat has any questions for Julie. I am so honored that you came on our platform today. Again, like I said before, you are more than welcome to come back at any
Mm-hmm.
time, because I believe people such as ourselves and those who are watching do need your guidance and your coaching, and an introduction to someone who is pretty much eating, beat, breathing, sleeping, adoption,
Mm-hmm.
and how to heal and how to identify their traumas and put words and language to it, as well as
Mm-hmm.
techniques and different exercises to help them get through it. So thank you so much again. I really do appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
3 a.m. I don't know if you have any questions. I know I asked all the questions,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely grab Julie while she's here because she's going to be away. She's going to be out of country. She about to
I
go be
am.
gone for a
No,
while.
I think questions that you asked were very sufficient and needed. Um, we thank you for coming up. We appreciate all of the
Mm-hmm.
knowledge you have bestowed upon us, and like Precious said, you're welcome back anytime.
I really appreciate that, you guys. If I want to come back, I will let you know. I'll give you a heads up. Hey, I'm going to show up, but the next couple of weeks I won't be able to because I'll be in
Yeah,
England and then I'll be going to a memorial service. So,
yeah. So sorry about that again. But guys, definitely tune in with Julie. She has the Resilient Project podcast, which is linked
Mhm.
in the description of this video, as well as her website as well. Definitely tap in, definitely subscribe to the podcast and listen or share it. You don't
Yeah.
necessarily need it. However, you were the pathway for it to get to
Mhm.
someone else. And I do believe that nothing happens by coincidence. And those
Mhm.
who are here this evening, definitely like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Tap in with Julie. If you need her services, do not be hesitant, do not shy away. That inner voice is speaking to you. Lean into it. It's never too late to start opening up and getting the language that you need to be able to heal the trauma that is deep rooted within you. Your body is keeping score. And so, if
Mhm.
you want to release that tension, you want to release those issues, you want to release those physical ailments that are going on right now because emotionally you're not too sure on what to do, which way to go, definitely tap in. We have Julie here tonight, but again, you can reach her by the links that are
Yep.
in the description of the video. So, thank you again, Julie. We're going to end this
Mhm.
show, guys. Definitely join us tomorrow. We have the men's panel, the men's forum at 9 p.m. Eastern. But until then, y'all know what I say, be real with yourself so you can be real with others. Thank you again, Julie. You have a great evening, and I'll be talking to you soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was wonderful to be with
Thank
you
you.
guys.
Thank you. Have a great night, guys. Happy Wednesday.